Are you tired of constantly feeling like there aren't enough hours in the day? Like no matter how hard you try, time keeps slipping through your fingers? You're not alone. The truth is, we've all been there, overwhelmed, stressed, and constantly scrambling to keep up. But here's the thing. The problem isn't just about having more time, it's about how we manage the time we already have. So, what if I told you that the key to truly mastering your time isn't some fancy productivity hack or a life-changing app? It's a mindset shift, a pragmatic approach that focuses on what really works, not what sounds good in theory. In this video, I'm going to share some powerful, no-nonsense tips that will help you take control of your time without the guilt, the overwhelm, or the burnout. Stick around, because these tips might challenge how you've been thinking about time management. By the end, you'll have a practical, actionable strategy to stop wasting time and start making it work for you. So hit that play button and let's dive in, because you deserve to take back control. Number 1. The power of purposeful procrastination. We've all heard it before. Stop procrastinating, just get it done. But what if I told you that procrastination, when done right, could actually be a powerful tool in your productivity arsenal? Yes, you heard me right. Purposeful procrastination is a game changer. Now, before you roll your eyes and dismiss this, let me explain. You might be thinking, wait, isn't procrastination the enemy of progress? Well, trust me on this. When approached with intention, it can give your mind the breathing room it needs to tackle challenges with more creativity and clarity. Think about it. How many times have you found yourself staring at a task, knowing you should start, but your brain just won't budge? You might try to force it, sitting there in frustration, but nothing seems to click. Now imagine, instead of pushing through that mental block, you step back and let your mind wander. What happens next? You might find yourself coming up with ideas or solutions you never would have thought of if you just sat there forcing yourself to work. We've all been there, overwhelmed, trying to get something done, and feeling like the pressure to perform is just making it harder. But the secret is, the mind often works best when it's given space to think on its own time. Here's where the power of purposeful procrastination comes in. It's not about avoiding the task altogether. It's about using that time when you should be working to let your subconscious do its thing. When you stop obsessing over finishing immediately, your brain has the freedom to come up with creative solutions you wouldn't have thought of if you were in panic mode. It's like giving your brain a mini vacation without actually being lazy. Let me give you a real-life example. A few months ago, I was working on a huge project that had me in a tight spot. I kept staring at my computer screen, feeling stuck, but all I could think about was how I needed to get it done. I was stressed, my thoughts were scattered, and nothing was moving forward. So, I decided to step away for a while. Instead of forcing myself to work, I went for a walk, grabbed a coffee, and let my mind wander. And you know what happened? By the time I sat back down, I had a whole new approach to the project, one that I wouldn't have arrived at if I'd kept grinding away in frustration. The ideas just clicked. I wasn't just working harder, I was working smarter. Purposeful procrastination isn't about avoiding your responsibilities or being lazy. It's about understanding the value of mental space. It's about trusting that when you step back, you're giving yourself permission to think differently. This isn't just about productivity, it's about reclaiming your creative energy and finding your flow. So the next time you feel that urge to dive into a task but your mind isn't in it, give yourself that space. Step away. Breathe. Let your subconscious take the wheel for a while. At the end of the day, this is about owning your process and understanding that sometimes stepping back is actually moving forward. You're giving yourself permission to breathe, to think, and to grow. When you embrace the power of purposeful procrastination, you start to realize that it's not about pushing yourself to the limit all the time. It's about knowing when to give yourself the break you truly need. Reclaim your time. Reclaim your peace. Number 2, the unstructured time block. Here's a little secret that might sound counterintuitive. You don't need to plan every minute of your day to be productive. In fact, giving yourself unstructured time might be the key to unlocking your best work. Yes, I'm serious. Now, I know what you're thinking. Unstructured time? Isn't that just procrastination in disguise? Trust me, it's not. Let me explain why leaving space for spontaneity could actually skyrocket your productivity and creativity. We've all been there, right? You set a rigid schedule for yourself, one that's packed to the brim with meetings, tasks, and deadlines. The pressure to follow that schedule is intense, and the more you try to stick to it, the more overwhelmed you feel. You start dreading the next task because your brain is too overloaded to even think clearly. Sound familiar? It's like trying to run a marathon in a straitjacket. No matter how hard you push, it's just not working. The truth is, when we force ourselves into a strict, non-stop routine, we can lose sight of the bigger picture, get burnt out, or simply run out of steam. That's where unstructured time comes in. Now imagine this. Instead of scheduling every second of your day, you carve out pockets of unstructured time. These are moments where you let your mind wander, where you allow yourself to break free from the clock and just be. Sounds a bit radical, doesn't it? But the beauty of unstructured time is that it gives your brain a chance to breathe, reflect, and even discover new ideas that you might not have had if you were confined to a rigid agenda. It's the time when creativity thrives, when problem-solving feels effortless, and when you can take a break without the guilt. Let me give you an example from my own life. Last month, I was swamped with a project that required tons of planning and organizing. I had blocked out every single hour of my day, trying to squeeze in work, meetings, and brainstorming sessions. But the more I stuck to my schedule, the less inspired I felt. I was mentally exhausted. So, I decided to try something different. I cleared an hour from my calendar. No tasks, no meetings, just a chunk of unstructured time. I used that time to take a walk, have a coffee, and let my thoughts roam. And wouldn't you know it? By the end of that hour, I had a whole new approach to the project. One that felt fresh and exciting, not forced. That unstructured time gave me the mental reset I needed to come back with clarity and focus. The real power of unstructured time is that it allows you to step outside the constant cycle of planning and productivity. It's about trusting your mind to work on its own terms, to process information in the background while you focus on something else. This isn't about wasting time, it's about giving yourself the space to think, recharge, and approach your work from a place of inspiration, not exhaustion. In a world where we're always on and busy, giving yourself permission to have unstructured time is a revolutionary act of self-care and creativity. When you allow yourself unstructured time, you're reclaiming your mental and emotional energy. You're saying, I trust myself to know when I need a break and when I'm ready to dive back in. It's about giving yourself permission to step away from the grind and find peace in the freedom of open time. And trust me, you'll return to your work stronger, clearer, and more effective. So, here's your takeaway. Embrace unstructured time. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity for your mental well-being and creative growth. Let your brain have room to breathe. It's in that space that ideas flourish, productivity soars, and you start working smarter, not harder. Because in the end, it's not about filling every moment with something to do. It's about reclaiming your time, your peace, and your potential. Number 3, embrace the 60-minute rule. Here's something that might sound a bit too simple to be true, but trust me on this. Working in 60-minute bursts could be the secret to unlocking your productivity. Yes, you read that right. 60 minutes, not 90, not 30, but 60. Now I know what you're thinking. How could just 1 hour possibly make a difference? But hear me out, because this simple shift might change the way you approach your day. We've all been there, sitting at our desks for hours on end, thinking we're making progress, but slowly realizing we're just spinning our wheels. Maybe you start a task, dive in, and the next thing you know, hours have passed, you're drained, and your focus is shot. We've all tried to power through that fatigue, right? But the problem is, the longer you push without a break, the less effective you become. Your brain just isn't built to go full throttle for too long. You're basically running on empty. Sound familiar? Here's where the 60-minute rule comes in. Instead of sitting there for hours at a time, commit to working in focused 60-minute intervals. Why 60 minutes, you ask? Well, research shows that our brains work best in chunks of time around this length. After an hour of focused work, your attention span starts to dip, and you're more likely to make mistakes or lose creative energy. But here's the trick. Once that hour is up, you take a short break. No checking your phone or scrolling through social media, just a quick reset. Walk around, stretch, grab a drink. Give your mind the space to recharge. I'll share a personal experience with you. A few months ago, I was juggling a ton of tasks, editing videos, writing scripts, responding to emails. Honestly, I was drowning in my to-do list. I tried to power through, thinking that if I just pushed a little harder, I'd get ahead. But instead of feeling productive, I felt worse and worse. My energy was depleted, and the quality of my work started slipping. So, I decided to try the 60-minute rule. I set a timer, worked for an hour, then took a 10-minute break. It wasn't magic, but it worked. I felt more energized, my focus sharpened, and I actually made progress. Each hour felt like a mini victory, and I ended up being more productive in a shorter amount of time than I ever had before. The beauty of the 60-minute rule is that it's not just about working harder, it's about working smarter. When you give your mind time to rest and reset, you come back with more clarity, more creativity, and more energy. It's about protecting your mental space so you can truly focus during that 60 minutes. You're not just checking off boxes, you're doing meaningful work at a pace that respects your mind's natural rhythms. At the end of the day, the 60-minute rule isn't just a productivity hack, it's a reminder to listen to your body and your mind. It's about honoring your focus and giving yourself permission to take a break when you need it. So next time you're facing a long day of tasks, try embracing the 60-minute rule. Work hard for an hour, rest, and then go back even stronger. It's not about pushing yourself to the brink of exhaustion. It's about respecting your limits and working in harmony with your natural energy. Your time, your focus, your peace. It's all worth it. Number 4, the anti-to-do list strategy. Here's a thought that might turn your productivity world upside down. What if I told you that one of the most effective ways to get things done isn't by adding to your to-do list, but by creating an anti-to-do list? I know it sounds a bit backwards, but hear me out. You're probably thinking, wait, doesn't that just mean I'm avoiding my tasks? Trust me, this isn't procrastination. It's a strategic move that could help you clear your mental clutter and boost your productivity in a way a typical to-do list never could. We've all been there, overwhelmed with a mountain of tasks, your to-do list growing longer by the second. The pressure mounts as you try to tackle each item, and before you know it, you're stuck in a cycle of starting tasks but never finishing them. You feel like you're constantly busy but not making real progress. It's exhausting. You try to juggle everything, and instead of feeling productive, you end up feeling drained and stuck. Sound familiar? Here's where the anti-to-do list comes in. Instead of adding more to your plate, you start by listing all the things you're not going to do today. You might say, "I'm not checking emails before 11 a.m." or "I'm not multitasking on my current project." It's about setting boundaries on what isn't important right now and actively eliminating distractions. The beauty of this strategy is that it gives you permission to focus on what matters most, and it removes the pressure of having to do it all. It's the mental clarity you didn't know you were missing. Let me share an example from my own life. A few months ago, I was overwhelmed by a long to-do list, a mixture of personal and professional tasks. I kept jumping from one thing to the next, barely finishing anything, feeling like I was constantly falling behind. So, I decided to try the anti-to-do list. Instead of making a long list of tasks, I wrote down the things I wasn't going to do. I told myself, no unnecessary meetings today, no jumping into projects without finishing the one in front of me, and no checking my phone for random notifications. That day, I ended up being incredibly focused. I didn't have that nagging feeling of having to do everything. The result? I finished more work, with less stress, and felt in control of my day. Here's the thing, we're taught to measure our success by what we do, but sometimes what we don't do is just as important. By actively setting limits and saying no to the less important tasks, you create space for the things that truly matter. It's a mental reset that helps you prioritize, conserve your energy, and protect your peace. This is about being intentional with your time and energy, about reclaiming control over the endless stream of demands, and focusing on what moves you forward. So, the next time you feel like you're drowning in a never-ending to-do list, try embracing the anti-to-do list. It's not about avoiding work. It's about choosing what not to do so you can do what truly matters. Your time, your peace, and your focus are yours to control. And that's the power of saying no to the chaos. Number 5. The power of saying no. Without guilt, imagine this. You're drowning in requests, whether it's from work, friends, or family. Everyone seems to need something from you. You know you're at your limit, but the thought of saying no feels like a personal failure, doesn't it? It's almost like saying no makes you a bad person. But here's the truth. The power to say no without guilt is one of the most liberating tools you can have in your arsenal. And yes, trust me on this one, it's a game changer. We've all been there, right? Someone asks for your help, and even though you're already overwhelmed, you still find yourself nodding along, saying yes without a second thought. You end up stretched thin, feeling resentful, and then, surprise, your mental health starts to take a hit. Or maybe you're constantly taking on extra responsibilities at work, feeling like you'll be seen as unreliable if you turn them down. But here's the kicker. Your time, energy, and peace of mind are just as valuable as anyone else's, and it's okay to say no. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't need a reason. You're allowed to protect your boundaries. Now you might be thinking, but isn't it selfish to say no? What will people think? Here's the thing. Saying no is actually one of the most self-respecting, healthy, and productive things you can do. You're not rejecting the person. You're rejecting the extra load that would break you. When you say no, you're choosing to honor your own needs and priorities, which in turn allows you to show up as your best self for others. Think of it like this. If you're constantly giving pieces of yourself away, you won't have enough left to give when it truly matters. Let me share a moment from my own life. A few months ago, I found myself buried under a pile of responsibilities, both personal and professional. A friend of mine asked me to help with a project that would take hours of my time, and I knew I couldn't handle it. For a split second, I hesitated because I wanted to be the person who says yes, who is always helpful. But then I took a breath and said, I can't commit to that right now. There was a brief silence on the other end of the phone, but then my friend just said, okay, no worries. And you know what? I felt a wave of relief, not guilt. I was able to focus on my own work without that extra weight hanging over me. Here's the emotional payoff. Saying no isn't just about freeing up time. It's about reclaiming your space and your peace. It's about not apologizing for prioritizing your own needs, which, by the way, is an act of self-respect. We tend to think that saying no will make us seem rude or inconsiderate, but in reality, it's often the most mature, empowering thing we can do. It sends a message to the world and to ourselves that we value our time and energy. So, the next time you feel that nagging pressure to say yes, ask yourself, will saying yes to this take away from my ability to say yes to the things that matter most to me? If the answer is yes, then it's time to practice the art of saying no without guilt. Remember, your peace, your time, and your energy are yours to protect, and anyone who truly respects you will understand that. By saying no, you're not shutting others out, you're making space for what really matters in your life. And that's the ultimate power move. Number 6. The reverse deadline trick. Have you ever found yourself staring at a deadline feeling like there's just no way you'll hit it? You know that pressure, the last-minute rush, the stress, the scrambling to get everything done in time. But here's a little secret. What if I told you there's a trick that can make deadlines feel less like a ticking time bomb and more like a manageable challenge? Yes, trust me on this. It's called the reverse deadline trick, and it might just change the way you work forever. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. A deadline is a deadline. How can you possibly change that? But hear me out. We've all been there, right? You've got a project with a looming deadline, and you know you should start early, but somehow you still wait until the last minute. Maybe it's procrastination, maybe it's life getting in the way, but it happens to the best of us. And by the time you get started, the clock is ticking louder than ever, and you're under immense pressure. The reverse deadline trick is all about flipping the script on that pressure by setting your own earlier deadline, one that's within your control. Here's how it works. Instead of waiting until the official deadline, you create a reverse deadline for yourself, something just a little ahead of the real one. It's like tricking your brain into thinking the pressure is already on, but in a more manageable way. The best part? You get all the benefits of urgency without the last-minute panic. It's a simple concept, but incredibly powerful. You're basically giving yourself extra time to breathe, and who doesn't want that? I've used this trick on more than one occasion. I'll give you a personal example. A few months ago, I had a major project at work with a tight deadline. Normally, I'd procrastinate and end up rushing at the last minute. But this time, I decided to set a reverse deadline for myself, 48 hours before the real deadline. I planned my schedule around this earlier date, breaking the project into smaller, manageable chunks. And you know what happened? I ended up finishing the whole thing early with time to spare. I didn't just meet the deadline, I actually had room to improve and polish my work. It felt like a huge win, like I was in control of the clock instead of the other way around. Here's the emotional payoff. This trick isn't just about getting your work done on time, it's about reclaiming your peace of mind. It's about taking the pressure off yourself and realizing that you don't have to be a slave to the clock. You've already faced the biggest challenge, getting started. By setting that reverse deadline, you give yourself permission to succeed without feeling rushed. It's an act of self-respect. You're prioritizing your mental space, your creativity, and your energy. So next time you're staring down a deadline, try using the reverse deadline trick. Set an earlier deadline that you know you can hit and watch as the pressure melts away. It's all about taking back control, giving yourself that extra time, that extra breathing room. And when you do, you'll find that you can actually get more done, with less stress, and with a sense of accomplishment that lasts long after the deadline passes. Because your time, your peace, and your confidence, they're worth protecting. Thank you so much for watching. I hope these pragmatic time management tips gave you some valuable insights and tools to make your time work for you. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. And if you want more content like this, make sure to subscribe so you never miss out on practical strategies to level up your life. Also, share this video with someone who could use a little time-saving wisdom. Let's spread the knowledge. I'd love to hear your thoughts or any time management hacks you've tried. Drop a comment below and let's start a conversation. Remember, your time is your most valuable resource, and how you manage it can change everything. So take control, stay intentional, and make every minute count. I'll see you in the next one.